Hello and thanks for joining us in this KEYC News Now to Go update. I'm Jackson Jurek, and in a few minutes I'll be joined by First Alert meteorologist Caitlin Lohr with a look at today's First Alert forecast and beyond. We'll start with some neighboring state news. Northland College, a private school in Wisconsin, announced yesterday that it will be shutting its doors for good at the end of the spring semester this year. Jeffrey McClure at her sister station at Northern News Now has more.
A snowy Ashland day turned dreary in a hurry.
There was really no warning, not a lot of information given to us prior to the news, but right away it was definitely a big hit to the chest.
Nolan Hemish was in his final year at Northland and, like everyone else, was shocked to learn the news.
Kind of hurt, had to go to class right after I found out the news, so it was definitely a dreadful day in class.
It is a very, very unique institution.
Former professor and now District 73 state rep Angela Stroud was as shocked as everyone else.
It did not deserve to be treated so poorly by mismanagement, and it's just devastating.
Stroud spent 13 years at Northland. More than a decade ago, she remembers a school leader worrying about a looming demographic cliff, and the low enrollment was coming. But she says those conversations were never revisited.
We definitely knew this was coming. And yet, despite having that initial conversation in 2012, I don't recall us ever talking about it again.
Now, what Stroud called a gem will soon be gone, along with its students.
We have to figure out what comes next for this campus, what comes next in this place, because what was already difficult in terms of attracting and retaining people to work in our jobs just became much, much harder.
133 years in the Northland, not even staffing and program cuts could save the school, which tugged at Stroud's emotions.
The roots run very deep. The connections are extremely deep. The impact is enormous. I have colleagues who dedicated their whole lives to this place. And, that's really profound work. And students who were transformed.
The end of an educational era, ushering a new era of uncertainty for this city. In Ashland, Jeffrey McClure, Northern News Now.
In more news, a New York grand jury has voted for at least one felony charge against all 5 people charged in the death of Red Wing native Sam Nordquist. The 24-year-old Minnesota native most recently lived in Oakdale and was found dead last Wednesday. Authorities say he left Minnesota last fall to visit his girlfriend. The transgender man endured nearly a month of physical and psychological abuse. A court appearance for the suspect scheduled for yesterday was canceled. They will be in court once an indictment is filed. In Wadena, investigators have released the name of the person who died in a building fire earlier this week. Midwest Medical Examiner's Office identified the victim as 68-year-old David Henrich. Investigators say no foul play is suspected in his death. 9 others are displaced. The National Guard is providing temporary shelter at the Armory with help from the Red Cross and the Salvation Army. The Wadena Assembly of God Church is accepting donations for people who lost everything in the apartment fire. Well, the dangerous cold of this week has left homeless shelters filled to the brim with people seeking help. As Aaron Stuvey reports, when the temperatures plummet, need for emergency shelter spikes.
Last year, our numbers here at the drop-in center averaged 10 to 15 people a day. Like I said, now we're 40 to 50 people a day.
Winter is always a busy season for local shelters, as people do their best to survive the cold. This week in particular has been busy for shelters as wind chills hit dangerous lows. Places like Connections Shelter in Mankato have a waiting list for people needing beds, but have started putting people on cots in any open space they can find in hopes of keeping them out of the cold.
We've had a lot more people showing up at the door for shelter, asking for like emergency sheltering, which we don't typically have. So we've been trying to stick people where we can stick them just for the night.
That demand has extended to places like the Salvation Army, who have also reported an increased demand for their day shelter. Leaders say that while they haven't hit their maximum capacity, the people coming through the doors often have even more to worry about than where they'll spend the day.
How long have the people been outside before they come to us? So we've seen some quick or light cases of frostbite. We're not medical professionals, but we know what it looks like, and we know that if it's not treated, if it's not treated, it's going to be a problem.
While the worst of this polar vortex has now passed, shelter leaders still want people to reach out if they're in need, whether if it's at places like the Salvation Army or Connection Shelter, or other places like Partners for Housing, who also say they still have some space if people are stuck. In Mankato, I'm Aaron Stuvey.
Yesterday was Bus Driver Appreciation Day, and Palmer Bus Service used the day to treat their drivers. They enjoyed a chilly lunch in between driving their routes, taking kids to and from school and sports and activities all year. Some drivers say that despite the busy schedules and difficult routes, some things make the job completely worthwhile.
Kids. The kids are the thing. I mean, that's what I'm doing, to get the kids to school. First tier and second tier.
Palmer Bus Service says that the districts are still experiencing a driver shortage that has affected schools for the past several years. Well, good news for those bus drivers and the kids, Caitlin. The warm weather is right around the corner, knocking on our door.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a lot of people and pets for sure that are going to be happy about the warm up out there and being able to go outside and not kind of hold your breath when you get hit with that blast of cold air. And relief is already starting. You know, I was joking around earlier with our boss and saying, "Wow, it's -5 outside, but it doesn't feel like it." And it doesn't, because we've been spending the last several days at 20 below zero. We do have a furry friend in here who's also super, you can see it, there he is. Very excited about the warm up, and I think we all are. So let's talk about it. Today is the warmest day that we will experience for the last week or so, with temperatures rising to a high of 13 degrees, and that is above zero. No minus sign in front of that, at least not until we get into late tonight into tomorrow morning, when those temperatures are expected to drop back below zero for one more night, at least our air temperature, that is. Now, winds today, pretty light from calm conditions up to about 10 miles an hour through the day today. So what that means is that, yes, we will still be dealing with a wind chill, but it's not going to be too drastic out there. We're going to top out with a feels like temperature of 2 degrees above zero. And this is exciting news for the fact that we have also not had wind chill values above zero for at least a week, if not a little bit longer than that. Because if you recall last week when we had highs in the single digits before that cold really settled into the area, our wind chill values were still well below zero. So today is the first day in about a week minimum, if not longer, that both our air temperature and wind chill temperature should rise above zero. Of course, it will drop back below zero tonight into tomorrow morning, but aside from that, it's still positively going to be warmer out there overall, and that's what we need to focus on. Tonight, we're going to drop to a low of 5 below zero by tomorrow morning, and tonight is really the last night that we will experience temperatures below zero, or I should say those air temperatures. And I'll explain why I'm saying that in just a minute here. Tomorrow, even warmer with a high of 18 degrees and more sunshine, but a breeze will continue to make it feel a little bit colder out there, potentially in the single digits and teens at times, maybe below zero, especially through the morning hours. One thing we haven't seen a lot of is rain or snow, and we actually are tracking a little bit of precipitation through the early to middle half of next week in the form of rain, and that's because temperatures are going to be warmer. We desperately need this precipitation because that little circle of normal ground conditions between the Twin Cities and the North Branch is unfortunately shrinking. The yellow here indicating abnormally dry conditions is kind of growing into that circle of untouched ground there, and this moderately dry, this tan color here, is kind of starting to take over the area again. So it could be worse, but thankfully we did get all that rain last year leading into the winter months, so our grounds were able to stay saturated, but we have to watch this carefully if we continue to stay on the dry side. The good news is we have a nice warm up on the way, so let's talk about that. Temperatures in the 30s by Saturday. The reason I said that we may see temperatures drop below zero would not be the air temperature, it would be the wind chill, and that would be likely tomorrow night if that breeze sticks around. But aside from that, after tomorrow night, we may not even see wind chills below zero going into the extended forecast, with highs in the 40s, lows in the 20s and 30s.
Exciting stuff, and it is National Love Your Pet Day. You can't see Cooper behind the desk right now, but you will see him on Cato Living later today, so be out on the look for that. I know he's happy, and he's getting
He's so
plenty of
happy.
attention here, and the warm weather definitely helps out with that. So thank you very much, Kaylin. We appreciate it. And thanks for watching this KEYC News Now to Go update. Stay with KEYC News Now for the latest local news, weather, and sports on our website. There he is.
Download the free KEYC News and weather apps for the latest headlines and forecast.